round. 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 Round 5 of the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh World Cup. And we are ready for the action here in Innsbruck in Austria. First heat of the Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. I'm Martin Haver, alongside me, Graham Richardson. I've sorted out my microphone problems now, everybody. So Graham Richardson, the ice coach and team manager of Bobsleigh Team Canada. What about this Innsbruck track? It's somewhere where you bring young drivers, but this weekend seems to be very different, the way that the ice is working.
Well, yes, they've had some problems. Normally this track is, we usually call it like the European Start Championships. If you start fast, you finish well. But this year they've had problems with one of the roofs collapsing under the heavy snowfall, and unfortunately the track isn't quite as smooth as it has been in the past. It's grown a bit, they haven't been able to cut it, and so as a result it's a bit of a lottery. We've not seen results like this before.
So what about the track? What are the key areas? Where are they going to lose time?
Okay, start, really important. First few corners, kind of counterintuitive. You think you should do a lot of work, not do a lot of work to keep it smooth, but you've got to keep the pressure in the sled. The sled slides off the corner sideways, you lose lots of time. Down here out of bend 9, big double pressure corner, he tends to try and throw you over to the left. Big bend 10 into the labyrinth. You've got to be really precise in the labyrinth. If you get behind the steering, it can get a bit rocky. And then through the finish, and of course then finish corner, and this is where we see quite a lot of action. It's left turn under the finish, in the finish tunnel, and that's if you don't get it stopped, you could be in trouble. Yeah,
that's one of the most dangerous bits of bobsledding is after the finish line here in Innsbruck. Mariam Yamanka, our Olympic champion, is the World Cup points leader with 3 wins out of 4 starts so far this season. The other victory going to Stephanie Schneider, her teammate in Winterberg. German sliders 1, 2, 3 ahead of Nadezhda Sergeva of Russia. Last couple of weekends we've had some very interesting results. Andrea Greco in the top 6 last weekend for Romania with a 5th position. We've seen some good runs from the smaller nations in the men and the women's competition. There's the Olympic champion. What about the ice today? I mean, it was moderately cold in training, but today, look at the air temperature, -9, and it feels it, doesn't it? The ice is going to be like glass. How quickly do you feel that as a driver? How quickly do you get the sense that, oh, I'm going to have to work a bit more or a bit less?
Well, I think for most of this season we've been on relatively warm ice. It's not been really cold. The colder it gets, the harder the ice gets. Most people are running on fat runners nowadays, so the difference now coming into a race on cold, hard ice, we might see some sideways action down some of these straights.
All right, well, Andrea Greco of Romania is first off from Martina Fontaneva. Rookies from Australia, Brianna Walker and Jamie Scroop join the World Cup for the very first time, starting at 3. Change of brake woman for Misha McNeil at 7, and then our Olympic champion goes off 13th and last in what is a slightly reduced field. Graham's team, the Canadian girls back home in Canada, starting their preparations for their home World Championships in Whistler in March. First led on the ice, race 5 of the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. Andrea Greco turned 25 last week on Thursday, and then on the Saturday gave herself a huge result with 5th place in Königssee. 13th and 17th, her 2 previous races, driving here in Eagles.
Yeah, Andrea she did the first monobob race the other week in Königssee, and kind of showed us how powerful she is at the start. She's definitely got it going on there.
Yeah, she's a former brake woman, started driving a couple of seasons ago. Teodora Vlad, new to the team this year, her 21-year-old brake woman.
And you can see how shiny the ice is, really, really well prepared.
Properly, and hard and fast. It probably is like glass, isn't it? So could be quite dramatic down the bottom.
Yeah, she's putting a good run together here as well. Keeping it off the walls, keeping it nice and straight.
I think we saw that in Königssee. It wasn't just one fluke run, it was 2 really neat drives.
Yeah, hanging on to 9 just a little bit, it pushes over to the left side there. Get lots of height in 10, let gravity accelerate you out of the corner down into the labyrinth.
Let's take a look at the speeds. Should be 120s. Through the finish corner, 119.5 of the line, 53.49.
Yeah, and Coach Paul Niagu happy with that. He knows that was a good run.
So finishing in 5th position yesterday, last weekend rather, 4th in the European Championships, but a huge top 6 result. That's the best result last week for a Romanian bobsled in decades.
Yeah, and of course, with it being the European Championships, possible funding will come from that.
Yep. Or whatever else, it's the confidence as well. Just a little late on the hang-up. That's perhaps the most notifiable mistake in the run.
Yeah, you see the great camera shots as well. You can see the ice fracturing because she's having to work hard to get off the corner, slowing her down.
Well, they have rounded runners, not square edges like on an ice skate, but you still see that ice spraying up, and that's all energy going the wrong way. Second of our starters, Martina Fontaneva with 22-year-old brakewoman Irina Strebel. Martina's not raced here in the World Cup before.
Yeah, you see the start grooves there. They're just a little bit rocky. We saw it in the skeleton yesterday.
Yeah.
They're getting shaken from side to side. Not quite as noticeable with the bobsleighs though. The start grooves aren't as straight as they normally are.
Well, so much snow in the Alps in the last couple of weeks. The track's been busy as well. They were Europa Cup racing here last week, and they raced before Christmas as well with skeleton. Luge been here as well recently. 0.03 of a second ahead, Martina Fontanev, very close with the Swiss sled and the Romanians.
Yeah, and another good run here. Oh, there you go, the little push over to the left out of 9.
Big height in 10.
Just a little bit behind the drag curve there in the labyrinth as well, but maintaining speed.
And at the line, 400s in it already. We're setting ourselves up for what we've had yesterday in the skeleton races, which is very, very compressed fields. 4 or 5 sleds covered by the same number of hundreds. We had in a couple of groups, we had 3 ties in the top 20 in the skeleton field in a men's race. Just saw Swiss legend Hans Hilterbrand with wife Ursula here. Keep an eye on the Swiss programme. Well, there's the skid, Graham, that it adds a little bit of insult to injury, doesn't it? As it gets light there, the sled just breaks away.
Yeah, there's a slight kind of hump there, and if you hit the wall and you try and correct it over the hump, the sled goes light, breaks out.
Big height in corner 10, whether by accident or design, not quite sure, up in the frost at the top of the track. World Cup debutantes now, 26-year-old Melbourne athlete Brianna Walker, who's driven in 2-man bob and also in monobob so far this season, and making her World Cup debut with brakewoman Jamie Scroop. She's a 30-year-old former pole vaulter from Adelaide in South Australia. Brianna started in November 2016, and they spent a couple of weeks in Lillehammer, alternated between driving and pushing. And she's won a couple of races in the monobob as well, so that's doing her confidence a whole load of good. Yeah,
she's had a fantastic start to the monobob season. She won both races out in Lillehammer, and again, we're seeing that she's a very good athlete, and with Jamie on the back, the pole vaulter, she's got some wheels as well, gets the sled going.
So their World Cup debut, it's also going to be their last race of the season. The Australian programme desperately short of funding. They would love to go to the World Championships, but they need a sponsor for that. This is the beginning of a resurgence of Australian women's bobsledding after the retirement of Astrid Lock-Wilkinson after the Sochi Games.
Yeah, she's doing well. She was a little bit behind on the top of the course, and you can see just a little bit behind on the labyrinth there. But you know, for a first run World Cup with the nerves.
Yeah. 53.87 down and safe. And again, as you said, you know, she's been plying her trade now, either on the front handles, on the back handles, in the monobob. Basically, when you turn up either to a Europa Cup race or a training weekend or even to the monobob races, it's you and a couple of officials and a couple of track workers. And then suddenly there are lights and cameras and headshots and people asking them in awkward questions. It's a very different start to their weekend.
Yeah, you can see in the coaches box there a couple of helpers from other nations. The girls all helping each other out. Yep. Simon Roberts, a team manager and great supporter back in the US where he lives. So yeah, the girls are helping each other out at the start there.
Yeah. Well, fantastic to see Australia back and sliding. Smile on the faces. They've obviously been helped out by Deanna Panting as well. If those aren't quick skin suits, I want to know who's been copying them. Martina Fonteneva, Andrea Greco and Brianne Walker are our top three, with 10 to go in the first of our two heats here in Innsbruck. Graham Richardson, Canadian coach and team manager. We were just looking at the results over the last decade. Only Helen Upperton, apart from Germans and Americans, has won here in the last decade. Is it just because they both, the Germans and the American teams, come loaded with break women, do we think?
I would say that's definitely the case. The fact that they win at the start, I would say we call it the European Start Championships for a reason. You know, they start quick and they get down to the bottom quick.
Well, Alana Myers-Taylor has the start record with Asia Evans from 2014, 2 years before the Worlds. That's a 5:38, a 5:55 today with Sylvia Hoffman. Sylvia making her World Cup debut. She's done 2 North America's Cup races.
Yeah, Alana wasn't. She was a bit ill in the beginning of the week. She took to take a day off and sat in the sled. So she's doing all right.
Yeah, really very ill actually. She was in hospital having blood tests and all sorts of stuff. So she's feeling very under the weather. She is our reigning world champion, and again, there was a day cut out of training anyway because of heavy snowfall and the roof collapsing, so there was only 2 days of training. She's only had 2 runs down the track, and as you say, sitting in means she's getting to the corners today, A, a lot faster, on B, on much faster ice than on her 2 training runs, and probably still feeling like death warmed up. So good job by Alana Myers-Taylor to get the sled down. This is a weekend for her to survive, I think.
Yeah, you see here, an exit of 9, she's got a little bit late. Here we go, over to the wall, breaks out a little bit. But then again, that could be the fact that the ice is fast and she's not been in the sled as much as she'd like to.
Yeah.
A little bit behind on the exit of 12 there.
Probably not a surprise, is it? She's 4100s ahead of Martina Fonteneva of Switzerland. So Alana Myers-Taylor, Sylvia Hoffman are leaders. Next up is Katy Beil of Austria. And Katy Beil again last weekend producing a superb race to take the European Championship bronze medal. Massive boost for the Austrian bobsledding program. 5:62 getaway with Jennifer Onosanya on the back. This is Katy's 18th World Cup start as a driver.
Yeah, you see through these slow first corners, this is where the Austrians, obviously being the home track, they've tested and played, and they know how to get through there and bring their velocity from the start through those first few corners. You see, it's only 1200s back coming out of Kreisel.
So now she needs to find a little bit more pace lower down the track, and she's got a couple more training runs this week than Alana, but makes the same mistake there, squirrely out of 9.
Good height in 10 though, and she's nice line through the labyrinth as well. As if she brings some more speed, we're looking at about 120.
Dive out the final corner, rattles the wall. Yeah. First Jarvol of the weekend from Franz Josef Hoffmann. 53.28 from him. All right, so he's happy with that. Katy Beil in second spot. See the girls panting like racehorses after the exertion at the top and then basically holding your breath all the way down. Well, Graham, as a driving coach, they're all going to have to try and get a little bit more ahead of the sled in the second heat, aren't they?
Yes, and I think obviously having been on the first run and kind of having a look at it and a feel of it, then they'll adjust, and the second runs hopefully we'll see a bit cleaner, especially out of 9 there. You can lose quite a bit of time there.
Different track here in race configuration. Next up is our 6th starter, making her 13th World Cup start, Anna Kohler of Germany. 25-year-old had 2 World Cup bronze medals in Altenburg last season and Sigulda at the beginning of this year. And her only ever race in Innsbruck was last year's World Cup. Never raced here in the junior level. So for some reason her Europa Cup career didn't encompass Innsbruck. Presumably the Germans figured they didn't need to learn it that badly.
Well, they've got enough tracks of their own, I'm sure they do their own development programs.
3rd World Cup for a break woman, Leonie Fiebig, the 28-year-old from Cologne, former long jumper and sprinter.
And she's putting a good run together here. These FES sleds are looking good. We see it every week. They run really well. Off Kreisel just a little bit earlier, brushed the inside wall.
She's got a very unique driving style. She looks around the peak on the sled. You can see her tucking her head in, looking around through the corners. A little bit like a car racing driver, kind of tucking her head in to see where she's going, because she sits so low behind that cowl. 53.20, second place at the line. And she's got to be shooting for medals here this weekend as well. She's got lots of speed on the back with Leonie. Well, I think we'll see the exit to the Kreisel, because she came down a little early, just avoided a clatter with the wall.
Yeah, because she got a little bit high at the beginning, then took it off just a little bit too strong, got really close to that inside wall. And then into 8 just a little bit late. She'll climb a bit more than she'd like it to there. Exit of 9, decent. 9's a double pressure corner. It tends to try and pick you up at the end. You can see the sled trying to get back up there. We try and push the apex around the corner a bit by steering at the start so the sled descends in the right place.
It's all about using the pressure to your advantage, isn't it? Change of brake woman for Great Britain's Misha McNeil. Montel Douglas rolled over her ankle this morning, so Lācis Kittel is on the back handles. The Chelmsford Ninja, 26 years old. Her last race was in December in the North America's Cup with Mish, and her last World Cup was February 2016. Misha McNeil, 25 years old. And good memories of this track back from 2012, the Youth Olympic Games, when she was in the girls' bobsled, finishing in the silver medal position. She was 3rd here in the Junior Worlds in 2012 as well. In fact, in the 2016 World Championships, Misha finished in 9th spot in Innsbruck as well. Let's see what she can produce today.
Yeah, good getaway in the DHL liveried sled, looking well.
5:81 start. And it's kind of tough when you've not been expecting to race to suddenly being given the call up 2 hours before the start. So kudos to Alicia. And see where they can find some speed down the track.
Yeah, so one thing about Misha's driving this year, she's putting it together. She's bringing lots of speed down the bottom of the track, which is good to see, and hopefully will have her in good stead for the World Champs over in Whistler.
Gets neatly out of the Kreisel. That's a good-looking run. 7th at the start, up to 6th position. Such a short track here, you don't have an awful lot of ground to play with. You've got to get everything nailed on. Speed at the bottom, 1:19.9, very quick, and 53.57. Okay, so 6th position, but good speed down at the bottom. We've had a couple of sleds quicker, Alana Myers-Taylor and Anna Kohler of Germany. And the brakes, getting them stopped just before they run out of ice and onto the rubber there at the top of the track.
Yeah, the trouble with the braking straight going around a left-hander is that the sleds are pushed over to the right.
Yep.
Everyone brakes in the same spot, and you get like a groove, so your brakes don't purchase there anymore. Yep. This is why you see drivers driving around to try and get to fresh ice, so the brakes will dig in.
A couple of little errors creeping in. Still hard to get any kind of sled straight through the labyrinth there, isn't it? And the 4-man, you'll see them all bouncing up in the air. Second of our 3 German sleds, last year's winner, Stephanie Schneider, with Ann-Kristen Strack behind her. Schneider's 40th World Cup start, but only her 18th as a driver. She had a hugely successful braking career. Ann-Kristen Strack now in her 14th World Cup as a brake woman. And a 5:53 getaway, that puts her right in the catbird seat at the moment. Fastest start so far.
Yeah, Schneider, always a strong starter. And obviously down to -11, so she's not just a good start time, but good start velocity. She's taking speed into the track.
Well, her win so far this season came in Winterberg, which is a similar sort of track. You need a good, strong start, you need to run it a long way, and then you need to be very quiet with the steering.
Yeah, you see that little bit of pressure. She did too much work in 9, so instead of going over to the left wall, the pressure dragged her over to the right.
Just in the red by 100th of a second behind Alana Myers-Taylor to go ahead of Anna Kohler, her teammate. 600's back at the line. Matthias Hoffner now. Hoffner, that is a little bit of a harsh critic. I think that was a pretty decent run. She'll know all too well the couple of errors that crept in. Doesn't matter how good the rest of it is, all that sticks in your mind is what you did wrong, right?
That's right. But you see, good start, good strong start, and this is why she gets the results she does. She's a strong starter, and as her driving improves and as her consistency improves, we'll see her on the podium a lot.
Well, last year she won races, and Mariama Yamanka didn't. Well, until the Olympic Games, anyway. This year, Mariama has taken over as the winner of the German drivers, but it is Alana Myers-Taylor who leads from Stephanie Schneider and Anna Kohler, and we are halfway through our field. Brittany Reinbold of the USA made her a great run in commentary last weekend in Königssee, Bavaria. Let's see what she can produce here. 34-year-old in her 18th World Cup. 6th and 8th here in her 2 previous World Cup drives. She raced in a World Cup team competition. She also raced here back in 2011 on the back handles in her earlier career as a brakewoman. She's got Jessica Davis behind her, another of the new American brakewomen in her 3rd World Cup start. 5:63. So that puts her 100th behind Kati Bile of Austria at the start.
They're looking nice and quiet through these first few corners.
Undramatic run so far. There's the commentator's curse. Out of the Chrysler, let's see how she fares. Right down the tubes. Not a bad looking run so far. Top 5 from Brittany Reinbold, and again she's got good control. Nice height in 10.
Yeah, she's just a little bit early into 11. That's going to just upset the rhythm slightly in the labyrinth, but that's a good run by Brittany.
Good speed at the bottom as well. 1:20.0, 53.32. Brian Scheimer and Lake Quasar at the top, applauding the run. And Jessica Davis gets nicely on the brakes. They're happy with that. Shana Roebuck there at the back, helping out with the coaching. She and Val Fleming won here in 2010-11 season, post the games.
You see, going into 8 there.
Tiny bump.
Just touches that. We call that bump the hammer. There's a slight mismatch in the concrete that makes up the track, and they try and ice it over. But if you get over that side, you either hit the front of it and it pushes your nose away from it, or your back bumper hits it, and that's why they call it the hammer, because the brakeman's hip gets hammered. Yeah,
bounced Jessica Davis right out of the seat. Next up, Anne van Nieuwenhuis of Belgium, with Sarah Ertz behind her, 27-year-old Anne, her 33rd World Cup as a driver. She did 5 World Cup starts as a brakewoman before that in what was then a very young Belgian programme. Her results here have all been in the teens. And she'll be calling the action in the 2-man race later on today.
Tom Delahunty, their coach, roaring them away from the start.
Yeah, the hairdryer treatment, always good for getting the sled going. 5:78 getaway. So they're at the moment battling with Great Britain and Australia. Well, the way the ice is cut this season, the fact that the walls are a little narrower, or what ice is thicker, the track's a little narrower, it's more of a driver's track perhaps than it usually is. So I wonder if Anne can make use of that. She's 10th at the moment.
Yeah, you can see when you see the sleds coming down the straight, you see that the ice on the bottom of the track, as it grows, the walls get shorter, they get rounder on the sides. Makes it you have to be a bit more precise to keep away from the walls then.
53.86, tucked her head down at the line as ever, and grabbed that vital 100th of a second to put her in front of Brianna Walker of Australia. And we talk about this every time she does it. She's not the tallest athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but still ducks ahead, because Graham, every 100th counts, and she's just proved it right now.
As we saw at the games when Justine Cripps tied the gold medal.
Yeah.
There we go, hammer.
Wow. Yeah, so that's what happens when you hit the front end, the whole sled takes off. And these things aren't light empty. They're definitely not like fully laden. So to lift it up at that speed, that's an awful lot of energy out of the sled.
Yeah, yeah. It's when you land off those that obviously the runners dig into the ice. It slows you down.
Nadezhda Sergeyeva of Russia making her 36th World Cup start, a former brakewoman, her 32nd as a driver. Yulia Egashenko, only her 4th World Cup race. She started this year, and it's her first time behind Nadezhda. Nadezhda's career as a brakewoman, by the way, was for Victoria Tokovaya. That's the woman in the white hat there who's currently coaching her. 5.62, so she's right in there with Brittany Reinbold and Anna Kohler of Germany and Katy Bile.
You just see it in corner 2 there, just a little bit loose, not controlling the sled enough, taking the long way around. If you're taking waves, you're taking the long way around the corner.
Corner 1's a little bit like Winterberg. It's one of those where you're not quite sure what to do with it. Drive it, ignore it, try and shortcut past it. Everybody's got a different theory, and not always do they work. 1400s back.
Yeah, fast and loose. This one, she's hitting a few walls, but keeping it straight. And there we go, a little bit of a bump out of 10 as well.
Again, if she's got fat runners on, she might have no option but to let the sled do what it wants to try and keep the speed on. 6th of the line, 53.36. So where does that... Ooh, brakes. So that leaves her 400s behind Brittany Reinbold. So battle there for 5th position. And then there's another 400s ahead of Brittany to Katy Bile in 4th. So that's a nice tight little margin. 800s, we make it sound like a huge deficit. 800ths of a second. That's one tiny touch. So Nadezhda down into 8. Right down the middle of the pipeline.
Straight into 8, nice run.
Yeah. And then
Yulia, finish corner.
Yeah.
You see that left-hander, if you don't get the brakes on before corner 15, which is the corner with no timing, it can lift the sled up, even more so in the foreman. We'll probably see, if it's cold like this on Sunday, we'll probably see some of the sleds lifting up there as well.
Alana Myers-Taylor, our race leader, with 2 to go. Second of our Russian sleds here in Innsbruck is 23-year-old rookie Lyubov Chernik, only her 5th World Cup start. She started November 2016. She's raced a season in Europa Cup. So she's been here once, and that was January last year. And Yulia Belomesnik behind her, now her 9th World Cup start, a positive veteran compared to her driver. 5.63, right in there with the sort of 4, 5, 6, 7 group.
Yeah, in training, she was putting in some good times in training, so it'll be interesting to see how she does today.
I think she's got a lot of potential for somebody with so little ice experience. Lines look neat and tidy.
Yeah, she's putting a good run together here.
Just 23 years old, so she's got lots of time on her side as well.
You see there, just off Kreisel a little bit too early, went to the right side.
6th at the start, 7th on the splits, little rub down the wall. All right, looks like it's going to be a top 7 run ahead of Andrea Grecu. Will she beat Martina Fonteneva of Switzerland to the line? She doesn't by... Oh, she does by 100th. So there you go, another 100th. 100th back to Fonteneve, 500s back to Andrea Grecu, 1300s back to Misha McNeil.
Yeah, it's a nice tight group there in the middle. It's going to be an exciting second run for those.
Yeah, we saw lots of snakes and ladders yesterday in both the men and women's skeleton. And Lyubov Chernik, I think she's got all sorts of potential for the Russians. I mean, she could be sliding for them for a good decade and maybe more. What do we say there? Choreography on ice. You know, even when you're a small driver, getting into these sleds is really quite some athletic achievement, because the shorter you are, the further towards the cowl your seat back is.
Yep.
Final sled in our first heat of 2 is the Olympic champion Mariama Yamanka, with 18-year-old Kara Lipperheider making her World Cup debut. So the only brake woman in the field born this century, Greybags. That makes me feel really young.
Stop it.
She's had 2 Europa Cup races in her life. In January with Kim Kalicki, they won both of them. This is her 3rd bobsleigh start ever. 5:57 getaway, and she's pushing the Olympic champion, no pressure.
She's a tall kind of rangy athlete as well. She's probably in the team for her velocity more than the strength at the start.
Well, they're trying to find another Annika Dracek, aren't they? Somebody tall, leggy, and powerful.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Well, you know, the search for brake women like drivers never stops, does it? You've got to make sure you got back up. And Yamanka, this year, last year she was on the podium a lot. She finished here in 3rd place. Couldn't win a race for love nor money in the previous 2 seasons until the games, and now she can barely stop herself. 400s behind Alana Myers-Taylor. This is going to be very close. Look at the speed. At the line, 500s in it. We've got a good race on our hands. 600s covering the top 3. 1600s to Anna Kola in 4th. And then a big group. Katy Bile, Brittany Reinbold, Nadezhda Sergeva, Lubov Chernik, Martina Fontenev, Andrea Grecu, maybe even Misha McNeil in the hunt for 4th, 5th, 6th. Clearing the snow off. Again, you know, World Cup rookie, but only 3 bobsled races. So she might have done plenty of warming up and a bit of push training, but the basic stuff the driver still has to train her.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, nobody else is allowed to actually take the snow off the sled, so it's one of these things that she's showing a maturity.
Yeah,
pointing a brake one in the right direction there.
Well, talking about that last night, weren't we, with Todd Hayes, that the driver has to be so responsible for all parts of their performance, and that means making sure your brake woman, particularly if they're new, do what they need to do. Well, beg your pardon, Sylvia Hoffman and Alana Myers-Taylor did exactly that. 2nd fastest start in the competition, and despite just 2 training runs sitting in, feeling very under the weather, Alana Myers-Taylor again brings the A game here in the first of our 2 heats. She leads a very tight pack. This is no runaway race for anybody. Alana Myers-Taylor 500s ahead of Mariama Yamanka, the Olympic champion, versus the world champion. World champion has the lead at the moment. Stephanie Schneider 3rd, Anna Kola 4th. And then look at the group behind. From Kola, Katy Bile, Brittany Reinbold, then Nadezhda Sergeva, Lubov Chernik, Martina Fontenev, Andrea Grecu. If Misha McNeil can get a good 2nd run, she could be in there as well in the leaders box for a few sleds. So that is our first heat completed here in Eagles. In the 2nd heat, they'll go in reverse order. Brianna Walker will be first on the ice in her 2nd ever push in the World Cup. And the Aussies will then watch the rest of the field come down as we wait to see who's going to win race number 5 in the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. Join Graham Richardson, me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew when we come back with our 2nd heat. We'll see you then. Bye for now.